Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Richard. And last time we left you with the pre-trade deadline show, and now we're going to cover what happened and go into that. But we're also going to talk a little bit about the couple games that the Ducks had before that. Things didn't quite go so well for the Ducks in those two games. They actually lost the two leading up to the trade deadline. They played Calgary, and they also played Edmonton. The game against Calgary, they had some bad luck. They had a couple bad bounces, and they ended up losing that game 2-1. Unfortunately, the first goal went in off Megna, and the second goal, the game-winning goal, also Megna deflected it and went back to Calgary on a 2-on-1, and they ended up winning that game. Not a bad game, but the Ducks lost that one. And then they also had the game against Edmonton. That was the one that we had the watch party at Kent Huskin's coffee place, and this one was another heartbreaker too, Eddie. Like we said, they lost the Calgary one. Then they had the Edmonton one. It looked like both of these games could have gone to where the Ducks could have maybe got a point. And it looked like the Ducks scored late and tied the game by Corey Perry, and then the goal was disallowed for a goalie interference in this game against Edmonton. So these last two games, Eddie, the Ducks ended up losing both of them 2-1 going up to the trade deadline. What are your thoughts?
Well, that wasn't goalie interference at all. I mean, you had RNG, whatever his name is, he was grabbing him and pushed him to the goalie. The same thing happened in the playoffs, and it was a good goal. So I have no idea why they decided to call it interference this game. I mean, maybe they didn't want to hear, the Edmonton fans crying like they usually do and being all upset about every little thing because they're really sensitive about their team, especially that McDavid was, suspended. I mean, I think the Ducks played well against Edmonton. They made a few mistakes, and they kind of digressed during the period. But like the first few minutes of it, they were controlling the game. I think it was like 7-1 shots for a nice little minute there. But unfortunately, the Ducks just couldn't get past it, and they couldn't really just. They were doing a great job in the middle zone, but once they got in their zone, they couldn't really get anything going. It was just kind of like pretty much a defensive game and goalie game. I didn't watch the Calgary game. Unfortunately, I was moving, but when I saw the score and seeing they just lost by one goal against the first in the West team, and Calgary's been pretty hot. I mean, that was pretty good to see, and that was like, wow. I mean, our Ducks are second to last right now, and they kept up with one of the best teams in the West, and that was pretty cool. And what you told me, Mike, it was just, unlucky bounces in that game. And if a few bounces would have went our way, I mean, that score could have been easily 2-1 Ducks.
Yeah, that first game against Calgary was a little frustrating. Like you said, you had the first place team. The Ducks played well. It looked like going late into that game, they were going to go to at least overtime. The two goals that Calgary scored were bad bounces. This game was pretty evenly played too. The Flames had 28 shots, the Ducks had 26. The faceoffs were almost even. I just really thought the Ducks could at least get a point out of this one, if not two. You had Ryan Miller started this game, the back-to-back scenario. There was a little bit of a scare towards the end. It looked like he tweaked his knee, but he did finish the game. And obviously he didn't play in the next game against Edmonton. The plan wasn't for him to play anyways. Boyle came in to start this one with the back-to-back scenario. As you all know, Gibson and Chad Johnson are still on the IR. But frustrating, the Ducks had won 3 out of 4 before with Murray as coach, and then they lose these two. I really thought they deserved a better fate. The second game against Edmonton, the no-goal call really, really irritated me. Looking at that play, if you look at it with Henrique towards the net there, he gets turned towards the goalie. It looks like he makes minimal contact, if any, with the goalie. The puck already goes between his pads to the other side where Perry slam dunks at home. I mean, it looked like a goal to me. I didn't see any interference whatsoever. Even if they deemed some of the contact there by Henrique, the puck had already gone through the goalie's leg, so it wouldn't have interfered with his chance to make a save anyways, because he didn't even know where the puck was. So, disappointing. Very, very disappointing. I thought that, like I said, the Ducks could have got a point in each of these games at least. So That's not what happened, unfortunately. We did have a good time at Kent Huskin's Coffee Place. We highly recommend you go there. They do have coffee and beer, so it's not just a coffee place. But we had the beer was fantastic. We had a good amount of fans that showed up there. We had the Mess Hall Canteen food truck there. If you have not heard about them, their food is the bomb. I had it was the grilled cheese, whatever it was. I don't even remember. It was so damn good, Eddie. I think you had it too. It was like bacon and cheese.
It was amazing. I was thinking myself out just in heaven for that little 10 minutes I was eating. And I eat fast, so
it's great, wow. Especially if you have a couple drinks. It's very, very good food. So we had a good time there. And if you saw the video, we put we had a kid on there talking about the Ducks game, and people were cracking up. That's Torin, and his dad and mom came and brought him as well. He was talking our ear off, and he actually knew a lot about hockey, Eddie. I was cracking me up. He kept talking about 87 on the Penguins and, how we got to take that guy and this guy. I was cracking up. He kept referring to a lot of players as names. But overall, a good time, Eddie, and, I had fun with everybody that came.
Oh, yeah, it was a fun experience. It was really great. Ken Huskins was nothing but pure class and just down to earth. He was just talking just like he was one of us. And I was like, dude, you're a Stanley Cup champion and a former professional hockey player, and you're just nonchalant, like just making sure everyone's comfortable, making sure everything was going smooth, and it was just a great experience. And it was really cool just to hang out with him and have that just have that experience and to go over there and do something different. So it was great. All the fans that showed up were awesome. The kid, this kid was probably one of the best Ducks fans I ever met in my life, and he was just full of energy. I mean, he got tired a little bit, but then he had a little, his second win and kept going, and he knew his hockey, and he was just really funny. And I want to bet anyone money if you talk to this kid for like 5 minutes, you're gonna have a smile on your face, and he's gonna make you laugh. It was a great Saturday night despite the loss. I mean, that kind of stung. I was driving home, and usually I pout when I drive home because I'm pissed off. I'm driving far after Ducks lost, but like the whole Saturday night, it was just a good experience, and I was still happy to drive home even though we lost, and just to have that experience with Huskins and that amazing kid, and then being at the DucksNPucks watch party, and of course that amazing food. It was just a great Saturday night. I think it's probably by far my best Saturday night of 2019 so far.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Like we said, fun times. Glad everybody could come out, and like you said, Kent was a great host as well. So had a good time. We'll maybe try and do another one. I don't know if we'll do it this season, but we'll see. We'll try and get back out there. But if you get a chance, swing by there at his place and check out what he has to offer. It's a pretty good setup there. It's a nice building and layout. So fast forward after Saturday, Eddie, we had Sunday to kind of hang out and think about some things, right? Nothing's going to happen. The trade deadline's on Monday. We'll see what's going to happen. It's not going to be too much stuff before, right? Well, nope. The Ducks ended up making a trade, and the first one that they did, not going to say I told you so, but I did tell you so. Brandon Montour was the first trade that the Ducks did make leading up to the trade deadline, and he ended up going to Buffalo. The Ducks ended up getting Brendan Aguli, and then it's confusing, but they got a 2019 first-round draft pick, depending on if it's San Jose or St. Louis, whichever one's higher. I'm not going to go into the specifics. Cap Friendly posted it. It's kind of confusing, but this trade got done, and of course people were upset. But this is the trade that we talked about in the last show, Eddie, with the extension of Silfverberg and the whole tagging issue and the Ducks going over the cap with that. They had to make some room, and the player we looked at was Montour, and that was the one that was done. So what did you think about this trade that the Ducks did? Obviously there's only a couple they made, but this was the big one that they did to start off this past weekend.
At first I was a little confused. I was still just driving home when it happened, so I couldn't really dissect it that much. But then just stopping and thinking about it, I mean, it makes sense for the Ducks. Obviously, we knew someone big was going to get traded. We had to. We just signed Silfverberg, and we have to, get under that cap space to officially sign him without having that tagging issue going on. A first-round pick is not bad. It's cool. I mean, me personally, I think Bob Murray could have waited to trade him today, and he probably could have got a little bit more for him by a team that was desperate. But we pretty much got a first and second round pick out of this, this trade. Gooley, right? Is what I'm saying his name right? Gooley. Yeah, he was a second round pick. So, I mean, technically we got a first round pick coming up over here next draft, and we got a second round pick. So it's not too bad. And what I've read about him, he's a really, really fast skater. He's really smooth. So hopefully he just transitions and makes that step to the player that he's projected to be, a top 4. So hopefully that works out. Just as a fan of Montour, he's been a stand-up guy, and pretty much we all watched him kind of develop for the Ducks, and it kind of stings a little bit. And I know a lot of fans, are get emotionally attached to players, like we all do. We're all human, which is it's normal. But I mean, we have to understand it's the business of it. But there's nothing wrong about missing a player and getting that emotional attachment. And I wish him the best of luck. Mike, we both met him. I think one of the games he went to, we saw him up there to Jack Daniel's Lounge, and he was nice enough to take a picture of both of us. I posted it on my Twitter. It was those experiences and those encounters, just him being that professional and him giving his all to the Ducks, regardless of people say that he's having a bad season, which all the Ducks are. And I mean, it's one of those things, and unfortunate. It's sad to see him go, but I think we got a pretty decent return. We could have got a little better, but it's still decent. And overall, I'm happy, and I wish him the best. And I hopefully this player and this pick works out best for us. Like I said, we had Kase as a 7th round pick, so you never know. We can have this later first round pick and be our future superstar. So hopefully, knock on wood. I'm not jinxing it, but hopefully that pans out that way. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm pretty happy with this one.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that made this trade happen, we talked about in the article too, and that's some things on the last podcast as well, as the issues with his defensive coverage. Him getting caught up the ice too much. Offense. Some people saying numbers aren't up there, but like you said, the whole team, the numbers aren't up there unless you're talking about Silfverberg and maybe Getzlaf. That have been up there doing some stuff. And Sprague as well, too, which he did not get traded, which that was kind of a surprise, but we could talk about that as well. But, those were some of the concerns they had. Don't forget, too, another thing that someone reminded me about today, and we were talking about it before the show, Eddie and I, was the whole arbitration issue with Montour as well. If you remember that he had filed for that before. And, when that happens, that's kind of an issue, too. So, maybe trying to keep him, he would want more money. That would have been a huge issue. And Murray decided to go with Silfverberg instead and give him, the 5.25, which it's not official yet, but it probably should be within the next week or so, is what it sounds like now that the dust on the trade deadline has settled. So you had some of that issues and concerns going on. And like we said, the only other one we thought was maybe Fowler, but the way he's been playing and everything, they decided to keep him, which is what Eddie and I thought on the last show. We thought of the two that they would most likely go with Montour. And then, they went out and got this Brendan Gooley guy, which I've heard mixed reviews. I've heard some people say he's not going to do much. He's a waste, but I've heard other people say good things about him. So, he's 21. So, you've got a few years younger than Montour. He's got 27 points this season in 50 games in the AHL right now. He played a couple games with the Sabres, no points. But, he's a decent size. He's 6'2", 196 pounds. The scouting report says that he can play physical, taking and giving hits. They're saying, that he's similar to Montour in being a two-way defenseman. But the thing I think Murray looked at in this one is that he can play more consistently throughout the game, both ends of the ice, which is what Montour kind of had some issues with this season. So that's probably what they're looking at, is getting a younger version of Montour with Gooley, kind of like what they did with Shore for Andrew Cogliano. Again, another trade that, on the face, as a Ducks fan, you're kind of sad because, obviously Cogliano was a fan favorite. Montour was a fan favorite for a lot of people as well, too. So I think that's what they're looking at, though, is they're looking at getting younger again. We talked about that in the last show. The other trades talk about it, too. They're getting more and more draft picks loading up, coming up this summer. But that's what I kind of see. And I do agree with you, Eddie. I think he did pull the trigger, Sunday before the trade deadline, which, may or may not have been a surprise. But, he could have held on and maybe got another pick or another, prospect out of it. But it goes back to the whole saying of, you can't evaluate a trade right away and say, oh, this team won or this team lost. It's hard to say right now. If Gooley can be close to what Montour is, then it might work out for the Ducks. And of course, the Ducks have another draft pick in the first round, which is good as well. So, I don't love this trade. I understand it. It makes room also for Silfverberg, like we talked about. The Ducks get younger, get more draft picks. And Eddie, that's pretty much the theme that, we saw as we talked about last week that Murray would go with. And we'll talk about the other trades in a couple minutes, but that's what the Ducks did on these last couple days before the trade deadline.
Yeah, I just understand this whole retooling thing he said. If you're retooling, why would you sign Silfverberg to this contract? Yeah, I mean, I love Silfverberg and I wouldn't want to see him go, but if you're really retooling, you could have traded him and you could have raised that price and got more draft picks. You could have switched them for some prospects or something. I mean, are you really retooling or are you just kind of tanking for this season and hoping that, next season will just be different with the same core that you have and, you're going to go in the offseason and add just, kind of over the hill guys that you had before. And I just, that's what kind of worries me. I do want change and I want our Ducks to play their best hockey and the most potential that they have, but I don't understand where Murray's going with this team. He throws out words like retooling, but you're signing Silfverberg to this contract when you could have easily got rid of him and got draft picks to help you retool, and you could have filled the void with the younger guys that are more than capable of filling a role and getting those minutes and producing. So I'm just kind of confused on what Murray means by retooling and what's going on with him. I really wish he would and the Ducks would be open and more just kind of communicate with the fans more and exactly tell what the fans are like what they're gonna do, and then not just do a letter to the Orange Alliance that your public relations person wrote, but just be open and honest. I mean, we all made fun of New York when they put that letter out to all their fans saying that they were rebuilding, and when they were, but you know what? I stopped to think about it. At least they had that common decency and courtesy to let their fans know what's going on. Even the Ottawa Senators and all the shit shows they've been going from last postseason, they still made it an effort to communicate with their fans. And Murray just goes out and just talks to reporters and throws out words like retooling, but he hasn't really communicated to the fans. And me personally as a fan, and I'm not sure about you, Mike, or our other fans, but I'm still confused about what's going on. I mean, we're only 7 points out of a playoff spot because the West is so weird. Are we just gonna let it ride and not want to make the playoffs, or are we gonna try to make the playoffs and then lose in the first round? I have no idea what they're trying to do. So I'm right now I'm just kind of confused on what's going on with this season and him throwing out words like retooling, but then signing someone like Silfverberg when he could have got a team to overpay for him.
No, I agree with you. I think if they would have traded Silfverberg, they could have got a lot more for sure than just a draft pick and, a minor league player with potential, basically. I mean, that's absolutely correct. I think they could have got, 3 or 4 different kind of players or draft picks combination, doing some kind of trade with him. But that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to keep Silfverberg, and like we said, he basically, by them doing that, put the Ducks in this position where they weren't going to be able to do a whole lot. We knew they weren't going to go out and get a bunch of players and whatnot. I saw when we posted our list, a bunch of people cracking up about the players that we saw that the Ducks might go after. Most of those players being AHL players or players with little NHL experience, but you had to know that was coming because once the Silfverberg deal was announced, and obviously they couldn't officially do it because of the whole tagging issue, it put the Ducks behind the 8 ball. They could not do a lot at this trade deadline. Not that they have in the last couple seasons anyways, but it tied this team's hands. And like you said, yeah, the whole retooling thing is a weird term because they're kind of adjusting some things but not adjusting some things. So, they've gotten a little bit younger on the defense. They moved Montour out. They didn't really change anything on the offense. I mean, unless you're going to say the big signing for the trade deadline was keeping Silfverberg, that's their offensive signing, basically. But they're not going in a full rebuild. They're doing stuff, for lack of a better term, half-assed. If that's what you're kind of looking at. They're not really addressing all the needs of the team. It seems like they're just going to ride out this season. They're going to pick the coach in the offseason. They're going to get whatever draft picks that they can get. They did create some more cap space too, and we'll talk about that in a second with a couple of these other trades. And to me, I don't know if they're officially tanking, but they're definitely writing off this season. They're not going to try and make a big push for the playoffs. They know if they make the playoffs, they're not going to go far. That's my understanding from what I'm seeing from all the stuff that happened. And, the other trades speak for themselves. They didn't do a whole lot. So later that night on Sunday night, they traded Del Zotto and, they traded Gibbons. And then at the end of the trade deadline, they traded Del Zotto. So those were the two trades, the other ones that they made. They moved out some more cap space. So on Sunday night, they sent out Gibbons. They got Patrick Seeloff from Ottawa, a little bit cheaper of a player. And then at the end of the trade deadline, they sent out Del Zotto. He had his $2.2 million cap hit, and they got a 6th-round draft pick also for the coming up draft this summer. So if you look at both of these moves, again, not much, Eddie. It goes in the same theme. You had Gibbons, who wasn't really doing a whole lot for the team this season. Was basically playing the 4th line or was scratched. Patrick Seeloff, I don't know how much of an impact he's going to make. He's another young defensive player. He's a big guy, 6 foot, 205. He's scored 2 goals in the 2 games that he played in the NHL, 2 debut games with different teams. He's got 9 points currently in 45 games with the minor league Senators team. So, he can add some to it. It does seem like he takes a little bit too many penalties. Another physical guy. So it looks like Murray kind of went for, some more physical type players on the blue line to add. And then they also moved out Del Zotto. So they, got more cap space. The Ducks moved out about $6 million in cap space and only brought in about $1.5 million. So now you can get your Silfverberg deal done. And you got some room for whatever's going to happen in the summer. I mean, that's when the Ducks tend to do more stuff. So, I mean, that's where it's at. I mean, it's not really an exciting trade deadline. We said that on the last show. I wasn't really anticipating a whole lot. I figured the Ducks would try to get some younger players or draft picks. That's exactly what they did. And they only moved out Montour. So nothing super exciting. If you're a Ducks fan and you're looking at this and you're like, man, this was terrible. We didn't do much. Well, yeah, we didn't. And it goes back to what you said, Eddie. The Ducks signed Silfverberg, and that just put them in a rock and a hard spot, giving them that extra money. There wasn't much that they could do, and I think they're just looking to next season.
Yeah, same here. I mean, we didn't come out as losers, by far. We weren't those donkeys that, we posted on DucksNPucks, that clip, that video clip. But we didn't really do much, and that was expected. A Seeloff, it's funny. He's a big physical guy, and he's not known for his, offensive abilities, but he's played in 2 NHL games, scored 2 goals on 4 shots, so he's 50% at shooting. He scored both of his debuts with the Calgary Flames and the Ottawa Senators. So, I mean, let's knock on wood, and hopefully he scores with the Ducks when he makes his debut. But he's more just seems like a AHL player, a career AHL player, and that defenseman guy. He does bring leadership. He's the alternate captain of the Senators AHL team over there. So, I mean, I guess that's good. I mean, Gibbons wasn't probably going to come back this season, so we got something from him. I mean that's a positive. And then moving Del Zotto, I mean, just taking away his cap to St. Louis, and it makes me think that whole trade, that goalie we traded. And the whole future considerations, like maybe that was one of them. Like, hey, we gave you this player for nothing, and you can take, this player and a little bit of a cap, for this draft pick, vice versa. I don't know, but I don't think we came out losers, and the Ducks really couldn't do anything. And like I said, I mean, what's there to do? Because we don't know what's going on, and we barely got told or informed that this retooling thing is going on. So I guess we have to wait and see, I guess come the draft and come the free agency, if we how much cap we have, or actually the draft will probably be more significant and see what we do. But I guess it's going to be a wait and see, and we just got to just hope for the best, and we got to just be we have to just be good fans and just stand behind our team. Obviously, I mean, as much as I want it, I mean, I want the Ducks to win the Stanley Cup, but I really don't think it's going to happen this year at all. There's no chance about that. What's going on? I mean, who knows? I mean, they can probably all just click and start having do a 180 and go on a big streak, but I mean, it's highly, unlikely. So we just got to be patient and see what happens in the off season, and then and go from there. And I know it sucks to say, and we just kind of are just kind of waiting, but I guess I'm doing a little quote bunny fingers, whatever. The retooling thing is happening, so we got to wait and see what happens in the off season and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the situation the Ducks are in right now. I mean, I think that they are playing better. I don't think that they're going to end up last in the entire Western Conference, but they might squeeze in the playoffs. I mean, you'll see. They could get a wild card, but who knows? I mean, overall, I think in all these games under Murray, really 5 out of 6 of them, they played pretty good. They only had the one game against Boston where they kind of had a bad start, and then they weren't able to recover from that. But overall, they've been playing pretty competitive. And I expect them to play, competitive the rest of the season. Like we said, I don't think they're going to tank on purpose. So, but as far as the Ducks do anything big or anything, like we said, it wasn't going to happen. It didn't happen. And what they did is they got younger. They created some more cap space. And that's what the team's going to look for. And, of course, they got to get a new coach in the summer. So that's where the team's at right now. But, the trade deadline overall, Eddie, wasn't very exciting at all. Pretty boring. If you look at most of the teams and what happened, there wasn't really a whole lot. I think the big one, Eddie, that we were joking about was the Columbus Blue Jackets. They pulled the Oprah, you get a player, you get a player, you get a player, and we get every player. I mean, Columbus was the one that was going out and getting everybody. I think they were probably one of the big winners on the day. We saw Vegas get Mark Stone and then sign him to a crazy extension. Nashville got Simmons as well. What did you think about, as far as, I guess, the winners as far as, the trade deadline went? I guess some of these teams would have been the ones that were winners, but there, wasn't really a whole lot of winning and losing today. A lot of, everybody staying the same pretty much, or some minor deals.
Oh, Columbus by far. Columbus is doing everything possible to solidify a spot in the playoffs and get past their, their little unlucky streak of not, advancing in the playoffs. And it worked for them. And they didn't really give up that much. I mean, yeah, they gave up a lot, but it wasn't too much and it wasn't that bad. I think they were the big winners and they came out real strong. And yeah, it was kind of a boring draft. I mean, it started off with Columbus getting Kincaid for a 22nd, fifth round pick. And so, but overall, I'm sitting here just like, okay, what's going on? And I take a little nap and tell my buddy, who's not a hockey fan at all, he just helped me out because I was tired. Hey, when the trade happens, just wake me up, let me know. So I think I dozed off for like 5 minutes. He's like, hey, some guy named Stone is gone. I'm like, oh, Mark Stone? He's, I don't know, some stoner guy. I'm like, it's Mark Stone. I'm like, dude, come on. And that was just like, and after that, it just went, you got Hayes going, Stone, and then you had Simmons going, like you said, to Nashville. Nashville got a lot stronger. Hayes going to Winnipeg, they got a lot stronger, but I think the biggest winners here are Columbus Blue Jackets, and they're really trying to make their mark, and hopefully it pays off for them. They worked hard. Their GM, I'm pretty sure he didn't sleep, and he was just trying to make deals and make his team better, and they did get that much better. And I think the players that they did sign aren't going to be rentals. They're probably going to just have fun and seeing how much hard their GM works, and they're going to appreciate that, and they're probably going to sign long term. Especially Matt Duchene, he's more of a loyal person. I know he had the problems with in Colorado, and there's more internal stuff to go on with that. But I mean, he just has a new family. He wants to just find his spot and be that leader and be that player to help a team win a Stanley Cup. So I wish him the best of luck too. This is kind of unpopular. I know Phil from Bay Bolts is probably going to hate this, but I think Tampa Bay kind of came out as losers today. They had a chance to bolster their roster, and Phil was talking about adding Simmons, and Simmons to the Bolts would have significantly helped them. I mean, we've seen what Tom Wilson did with the Capitals, last season. Just those kind of players you need in the playoffs. Those physical, hard-nosed players that can put points on the board, that get in those dirty areas and open up spaces for players. And I think that, I mean, the Bolts are by far, they're the best team in the NHL, but I think they could have got that much better, and they could have just been that much dangerous by adding someone like Simmons or Hayes. Even Hayes, he's a big power forward, like 6'3", 6'4". He's a big boy, but they just kind of stood put just didn't really do anything. So I mean, I know this is like most like unpopular thing I'm saying about them being the losers, but I think if Tampa Bay would have added some kind of like grit to their roster, it would have helped in the playoffs and made them that much more dangerous. So I'm not sure who you think the loser is, Mike, but I mean that's my thing. And I'm sorry, Phil. I mean, I'm probably sure you'll text me later and like, well, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I feel you what you're saying too. I mean, yeah, Tampa Bay didn't do much, but of course, they're just blowing everybody away in the entire league right now. I mean, they've just been killing it. So they didn't do a whole lot. But like you said, yeah, they could have added someone else to do it in there. But I didn't really think a lot of teams in the West really did a whole lot. I mean, Edmonton didn't do anything. And I mean, you look at the Kings, they didn't do a whole lot. Vancouver, Arizona. I mean, there's some of these minor league trades. I mean, I didn't really see a whole lot in the Western Conference, or specifically the Pacific Division, I should say. Not a lot there. Outside of course, Vegas doing some stuff there and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, Edmonton, the Kings, teams that didn't really do a whole lot. Like you said, Tampa Bay didn't do much. The thing that surprised me was the Vegas move wasn't so much the trade. I mean, they sent a couple players to Ottawa, draft pick, whatnot. But what was crazy to me was the extension that they gave Mark Stone right off the bat. I mean, they ended up doing an 8-year, $9 million annual average contract. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a great player and everything. But we talk about these big long-term contracts and whatnot. I'm not a big fan of those. I don't like doing these 6, 7, 8-year deals and a lot of money. I'm just not a big fan. And don't get me wrong, Stone's a really good player, but I just thought that extension was kind of crazy, Eddie. I don't know what you thought. I mean, obviously good on Vegas. They're definitely making a push in the Western Conference, but holy smokes. I mean, 8 years, $9 million a year. For me, that was a little bit too much in money and term.
Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the long contracts. It just kind of, you're going to have a player that in his prime for 3-4 years, and then boom, you're just going to, make a lot of money and not really do anything. But I think that kind of solidified him going over there, like the whole sign and trade thing. I think Vegas didn't want like a rental player; they wanted to keep a player. So I think part of the, if you look down at their contract thing and their discussions, I think part of it, that trade, being finalized was him wanting to sign a contract. I remember, I think it was like 8 a.m. They were talking about how Vegas is, talking over there to the Senators and trying to get a deal done. I think they had a deal done already. It was just trying to get him to sign a contract. And I mean, Vegas is a brand new team, and they're a good team, and they're probably going to win a cup in the next few years. I know, no doubt about that. And another thing is, it's like there's no state tax, so he gets that money, like straight more money over there. And I think it'll be good for him. He's a really good player. What 4 seasons already? He has 60+ points. He's putting up 60 points already with Ottawa, and they're dead last. But I mean, the money. Oh, that's a lot. Maybe 7 for me. I know it's only $1 million, but 7 for me. But the term is long, and I'm not a big fan of those terms. But I understand to get players signed, they want stability, and I mean, what are you going to do? To just take on a rental player just to have him walk on you? I mean, you have to go and take a gamble. I mean, that's the most appropriate thing to say for Vegas. They're gambling. So let's see if it works out for them. And hopefully it fails when they play the Ducks and he doesn't get any points at all. I mean, that's the best thing we can hope for. But yeah, I mean, at least they're trying to bolster their roster and to make a cup run. And if they win the Stanley Cup, then I guess, that kind of pays off for it. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, the only other the team that really did anything in the Pacific Division was San Jose. They did get Nyquist. Remember, there was a lot of talks before about the Ducks with being involved in years before and whatnot. And so the Sharks did give up a bunch of draft picks. They did give up a second round for this coming year and a third round next year. Conditional pick. So they did do that, but obviously they got a little bit better bringing him in too. So you've got Vegas and San Jose, trying to do their thing in the Pacific Division there, trying to get a little bit better. But overall, I mean, it was quiet for the whole league, but definitely the Pacific, I didn't see a whole lot going on. And like you said, you've got Nashville trying to go for it as well. And then Columbus really getting crazy. They did so much stuff today. So those are the teams that I looked at, kind of the ones that won out. I mean, I don't think the Sharks necessarily won today, but again, they're another team that, try to do some moves and put themselves in a better position. Nashville, same way. They try to do some stuff. But that was really it. I mean, I think a lot of teams just stayed pat, or some of them didn't do a whole lot at all, like we mentioned. So, I mean, it's sad to say, but this trade deadline was boring. I mean, it was. It just was not that exciting this year around. Not a whole lot of action or a lot of things going on. Not a lot of trades overall either. So, I don't see a whole lot changing. But those teams that did add, I mean, they're definitely in the mix. Like we said, Nashville, San Jose, Vegas, Columbus, they're all trying for sure. So we'll see what happens the rest of the way. I mean, now the dust is settled and whatnot. Like we said, not much going to change with the Ducks. We do have a lot of fan questions about, what's going on as far as, with this trade deadline. And, we'll get to some of those right now. But, one of them that we talked about, we had Josh, he was at the watch party, asked about the Ducks, are the Ducks a playoff team after this? And I would still tell you that most likely they're not a playoff team. Or if they do make the playoffs, they're barely going to make it and they're going to get knocked out. So I don't think that they are a contender. I do think that they could kind of squeeze in there. Sometimes I do think in the back of my mind, Eddie, it's kind of funny, but you remember a couple years ago, some team north of us on the 5 freeway barely made the playoffs and got hot and went all the way and won. And I think it would be amazing if that happened with this team, but I'm a realist too, so I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up everybody's. I just don't see it happening. I don't see them being a contending type team. They may squeeze in the playoffs, but I just don't see them going that far, Eddie.
I agree with you. That's my thoughts exactly. I almost threw up when you mentioned that other team. I don't want to.
That's why I said another team.
Yeah, I just don't see that with the Ducks. They just don't have that much fight in them, and. Yeah, they have a few good games here and there, and it's like, yeah, we start getting our hopes up, but they just always revert back to that, that complacentness, and they don't play a full 60-minute game. And I think I can only count on one hand this season how many games they played a full 60 minutes. Maybe less if I only had like 3 fingers. I don't know. They start off strong, or they finish strong, or they in the middle of the game they start having that glimpse of that flash of greatness, but they just revert back to just going through the motions. And I don't see this team being that killer team that's willing to go and win the playoffs and thrive in it. And I definitely don't want to, I know this sounds bad, but I'd rather Ducks just lose more games and not make the playoffs than barely squeeze in and just get, swept again, just to be embarrassed. It just, I don't want that to happen at all. I'd rather get a better draft pick than have the Ducks go out in the first round again. And especially, for retooling, I got to Google that freaking word and see what it means, because I can't even spell retooling. And that's just an inside joke that from a movie, but I mean, people say tank, and I hate that word because I hate to see, a team tank. And if the Ducks were tanking, then why am I going to waste my time watching the games? I can do, well, I don't really have a life, so I won't do anything else, but still I can, wash my hair or something. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of frustrating, and it's frustrating to see your team and know what the outcome's going to be and know that we're going to have a long summer. And that just bothers me the most. But I mean, what keeps us hopeful is hopefully that retooling word means that we'll make some, a little bit of transactions during the off season and get that much better. Hopefully our young guns are that much stronger, and they're, they can handle more responsibility and they can really bring it to them. And who knows? I mean, maybe this little retooling word is just for this season, and come next season we'll be a brand new team with some of the same players and a lot of the youth coming up. So we can only hope for that.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of goes along with the next fan question Melissa asked. How many games are the Ducks going to win the rest of the season? How are these new guys going to fit in? Well, I mean, the Ducks have about 20 games to go, and honestly, they've been 500 right now with Murray, and that's kind of what I think is going to happen the rest of the season. I think they're going to probably win half the games and lose half the games. I don't see them, making a huge push. Like we said, they've played better, in these 6 games with Murray. I'd say 5 out of 6 of them they could have won. So I do think they could win a little bit more than they lose too, but I don't see it being much. And then as far as the new guys, there's not really a whole lot of new guys. The Ducks only brought in 2 players. I think Cooley's going to be in there in the bottom pairing, defensively, and he may fit in. We'll see. As far as Seeloff, I think he's just going to be more in the minors, if anything. So there's not going to be a whole lot of changes. You did see some of the moves. The Ducks did bring up Holzer, and they did send Welinski back down. So you're probably going to see a little bit more of the German tank in there on the blue line. Obviously, he's not going to provide a lot of offense, but, Holzer doesn't make too many mistakes. So I think he's going to be one that the Ducks are going to have in there a lot, too, on that third pairing as well. So that's my take on that, Eddie. What do you think as far as the Ducks, how many games are going to win or lose here in the last, 5 or 6 weeks of the season?
Yeah, same here. I think it's going to be just 50-50. We were all making fun of Murray, but he's not doing that bad of a job coaching. And the Ducks seem like they're playing a lot better. I think they're playing their best hockey with Murray behind the bench. Even though against Edmonton and Calgary, I know I didn't watch the Calgary game, but I was talking to a lot of fans, and I was talking to you, Mike, and it seemed like the Ducks really, played pretty much their best, and they hung with one of the best in the West, and they only lost by 1 point. And I think 2 of the goals went off a Ducks player, Magna, I believe it was.
Yep.
I mean, you can't really hate on the Ducks for that, but I think they're going to win some, they're going to lose some. I don't think they're going to finish dead last at all. Ottawa's over here saying "hold my beer" by trading everyone and their mother. I even Mike. I was like, I think Mike texted me saying, "Hey, just out of respect, I'm letting you know that we almost traded you to the Columbus Blue Jackets." I'm like, oh, okay. But no, I don't think we're going to end up that. I think we're probably going to maybe be like fifth to last, hopefully, or barely just out of a wild card spot. It might come down to a game, and we lose that game. We barely miss it by that much. But, I mean, I love the Ducks, their mentality, though, right now, because they have that little more fight in them, especially that first game when they played against Vancouver, and he had 2 fights. He had, a 1-0 win by Boyle. It was just a whole different tempo you saw the team, and a whole different Ducks team you saw. And I really wish, like we talked about in numerous shows, that Carlisle would have been gone a long time ago, because maybe that could have helped the Ducks, and we could have been, buyers instead of, semi-sellers and, this, trade deadline. But it's what it is, and all we do is have to hope for the best, and, we just have to go to, every game expecting a win. Like tonight we're playing Vancouver, and, hopefully we can just get a win regardless. I do want the higher draft pick, but I don't want to watch my team lose at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And, another thing that came out while we're recording this, I guess the Ducks made another move, at least roster move, not a trade, but they did send Sam Steele back to San Diego, and then they brought up Angus Redmond. Kind of a weird thing there. So that just kind of hit the social media posts now from the Ducks. So kind of interesting. I don't know what's going on exactly as far as that. Like we said, Holzer was already brought up, and Welinski was sent down. So they're kind of making some more movement here. Don't know if they're going to be sending maybe Boyle back down or whatnot, but later on. But there's another move that they did as well. So just some minor stuff. There's going to be a lot of that, though, going on, a lot of shuffling. Like we talked about, Ducks probably 500 the rest of the season. They're going to be moving players up and down, getting ready for the end of the season, probably trying out a lot more of the younger guys as well, I would think, based upon what's going on and what's happened so far this year. A couple more questions here. We'll round out the show. We did have Alex. He asked us, is there some kind of bad blood between Montour and Bob Murray with the way everything went down with the arbitration and all that and whatnot? And I don't think it's that. I just think Murray's got a real hard-on for not playing defensive hockey and being lazy. I mean, we saw Pontus Aberg get sent out earlier in the season, despite leading the team and scoring goals for most of the season. So I think they kind of sent a message for that. And then, of course, you saw Montour go out, and he had some defensive issues going on this season as well. So I think that's kind of more what it is. But, with Murray, I think that's been the theme. I don't think there's any negative feelings or bad blood between the two, but that's kind of what I've seen, Eddie, is just if you're going to, come to the rink and you're not going to play a complete game and be a little bit lazy in your defensive responsibilities, especially if you're a defensive player, things are going to happen. You're either going to get sent down or traded. And I really think that that's what's been going on, because we put so much pressure on Gibson this season. Now he's out on the IR. And like you and I talked about, they should have given him more rest. And I mean, now he is getting rest because you've had Miller and Boyle in net. And that's what I see has been the issue. I don't think there's any hard feelings. I just think it's Murray's really demanding a lot defensively of his players, whether you play forward or defense.
Oh, definitely. I think these players, that term professional comes first when it be before athlete, and they all know the game. They have their agents that kind of like go to the arbitration and argue their money, and it's not someone being selfish, and everyone understands, and him wanting to get the most money for his value is understandable. I mean, no one wants to work a job and have another guy that's less than him getting more money. I don't know if that was the question you're asking, Alex. But I mean, it's just business on that aspect. And as far as trading, I mean, it happens. It sucks. I'm pretty sure these players would hate it. And, just as anyone, if you're working a job, you're comfortable and they trade you, I mean, you're going to have some kind of like, just not ill feelings, but it's just like, man, what happened? If you guys didn't see the Montour interview, we posted it on DucksNPucks on Instagram and Facebook. He looked kind of bummed out and stuff like that, but I don't think he has any hard feelings toward Murray. And our hockey players, all hockey players are usually, they have some class and they have that professionalism. Or if they did, they're not going to address it publicly. But just the way he was talking, he didn't seem like there was any, bad blood between him and Murray. He was just kind of bummed out with everything. I think he kind of just more bummed out that in his mind, he thinks that he could have done something better to stay on the Ducks and help the Ducks and not resort to him getting traded. But, as far as, there's always that outlier where, a GM and a player don't get along, or a coach and a player don't get along that well, and it goes, a different way. You look back in the day when Patrick Wall yelled at his owner saying he's never going to play for Montreal again. I mean, you have things like that, but I mean, with Montour's case, I think it was just, a business transaction, and things weren't working out, by both parties, and Montour probably knew that he wasn't going to get the money that he's going to want when he becomes a free agent. He's probably going to command within the $4 to $5 million mark, and I can't see Murray, giving him that too as well. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. It's business is business, and they just let it go at that. I'm pretty sure when Montour comes back to Anaheim, he's going to want to play his best hockey, just to be like, hey, well, you traded me, and look what happened. So, I mean, it's what it is in business, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that's the thing. I think Montour wanted to stay, so I don't really see there being any kind of bad blood or anything like that. I think, like you said, that was business. I think part of it, too, is you had to move someone, like we said, to keep Silfverberg, as we talked about earlier in the show. So, that was part of the issue, too, and that was the one that he wanted to go with, and that's the way it went down. So there was a lot of things going on. I think, like we said, if Silfverberg wasn't given that kind of an extension, Montour would still be here. So, yeah, with that, I guess one other question we do have is kind of funny, Eddie, is my buddy Stan. He asked, why is Bob Murray so red? And he's talking about Bob Murray's face. So, my automatic answer is going to be that he drinks a lot, which I'm not saying he does. But if someone has a red face all the time, it's either complexion or a lot of drinking. I don't know. I'm gonna go with drinking. No, just kidding. I'm going with complexion, Eddie. We have to answer some of the humorous questions too. But what do you think? You think, or maybe Murray's angry? But what do you think, Eddie?
I don't know, but Mike, I haven't got any sleep, but I've been up all night and all day covering the draft, and I've been drinking since the morning. And my face is pretty red, and I'm part Hispanic, so I have a little darker complexion, but my face is red right now. So shout out to my buddy who's driving to my hockey game tonight. Hopefully, I'll sweat all this out, and I'll probably be more red. But I don't know. I noticed that too, though. I see his face. He's just always so red. Like, dude, what is going on? Like, are you like putting that tanning bed a little too high? Is that the new thing? I know I've been out of the whole dating game for a while, but is it to be like blood red? That's the new thing. I have no idea. But I mean, It's a funny question. Thanks for answering that or asking that. It's a little humor, but like you said, my complexion, I'm going with alcohol. He's just stressed out. He's vice president, general manager, coach. So I mean, who knows? Those little Gatorade bottles probably filled with vodka, or I don't even know if vodka turns you red. I think it was like whiskey turns you red or something. I have no idea.
Yeah, you gotta throw some humor into the show once in a while. You know what I mean? So. With that, we're pretty much going to wrap up. The Ducks got some, more games to play, obviously, and we'll see how they do the rest of the season. We'll keep trying to do podcasts every week, or if something crazy happens, obviously, we'll jump on there and talk more on the show. Don't forget, we're still doing giveaways on our Patreon website, patreon.com/DucksNPucks. If you sign up, you can still win game tickets or T-shirts as well, and we appreciate the support. And we'll be back, like I said, probably in a week. We'll see what happens, and let's go Ducks.